Well, Winnie is back, and it seems he brought more of his friends this time. Will Christopher and his loved ones be able to uncover the secrets surrounding these beasts and use that knowledge to survive? Or will they be torn to pieces in a variety of violent and savage ways? Either way, this is certainly going to be one of the most movies of all time, as we see how to beat Winnie-the-Pooh in Blood and Honey 2. Our story begins with a recap of events since the first movie. For those who didn't have the honor of seeing it, or who haven't seen our How to Beat covering the film, we'll sum it up here real quick. It was still the classic story of Winnie-the-Pooh, a bear and his animal friends living out in the 100-acre woods, who get visited by a small boy named Christopher Robin for adventures and bonding time. But in this twisted version of the tale, Christopher leaves when he gets older, and all the animal friends turn feral and aggressive in his absence, leading to several murders. Christopher managed to survive and return to his town of Ashdown, but few believe his story about anthropomorphic killer animals in the woods, and instead just believe he's responsible for all the deaths somehow. But the few people who did believe him now go out to the woods, hunting the beasts potentially there, and destroying sections of the forest to prevent them from hiding. Because of this, both Pooh and Christopher are having a harder time in their daily lives. There, we're all caught up now. So 3 random women with an RV thought it was a good idea to go camping in those same woods that had all the murders, and use a Ouija board to try and contact spirits of the victims. Not sure if that puts them in the believer or non-believer side of the story, but it won't really matter in just a few moments, as they'll quickly become spirits themselves. Their seance is soon interrupted by a large thud, yet before they can even investigate the noise, a pole is shoved through both the side of the vehicle as well as the torso of one of the women, ending her. Next we see Pooh Bear flip the entire camper into the lake, which just so happens to also cause a fire inside it, burning another woman alive. That's 2 down already. The third woman gets out the back and attempts to drive away, but is stopped by a bear trap and soon ended brutally by it as well. Oh, but looks like the woman survived. That doesn't last for too long, however, as Al comes over and caves her skull in. Well, that all was needlessly and excessively violent, but I guess we all knew what we were getting into with this film. Doesn't change much from here on out. 3 hunters are now out in the 100-acre woods at night, looking to avenge the women that were slaughtered when they are jumped by Piglet. However, with superior numbers and superior firepower, they blast the little piggy's head into bacon bits. That was surprisingly easy. Now they just have to do that for the other 3 killer beasts. Before they can, though, a member of the group is separated and has their throat by Pooh. The other 2 go to help, but are jumped by the bear, who wrestles for their shotgun. During the struggle, it discharges, hitting the third hunter in the face as Pooh takes the firearm from the second. Don't worry though, he gives it back right away. Through the man's head, however. I'm sure there's some sort of joke to be made here about right to bear arms or something, but I can't think of one. Oh well, at least they did manage to take one creature out. But this is the final straw for Pooh and his pals, who are sick of humans coming into their land. So they decide to take the fight to the people and are planning on invading the town. Let's hope Christopher and his friends will be ready for them. Speaking of Chris, we finally get to see how he's doing. The man has been going to therapy over the murders and other tragic events from his past, while dealing with almost constant harassment from the locals who think he's somehow responsible. It's now gotten so bad that he's even losing his job as a medical provider over it, as the higher-ups don't want any of the negative attention having him on staff brings to the hospital. Damn. It's already bad enough to have people making your life miserable over false events that already cost you a loved one, but now you're being treated as a burden just because others are treating you negatively. That's rough, buddy. On the slightly more positive side, Christopher now has a breakthrough at his next therapy session, where he is able to remember more details of his past involving his kidnapped baby brother. This could lead to police potentially opening the case again and finally solving the mystery of who took them and why. Hey, I did say it was only slightly more positive, but dealing with this tragic and traumatic event for closure could possibly do wonders for his mental state, which he could really use. On top of this, the therapy session retcons a few things for us from the first film. Apparently, Pooh was always a savage beast of an animal person, and Chris's subconscious just altered his memories to seem more innocent and happy. Alright, sure, let's go with that. So what of the events from the first movie we saw? Well, that's now an in-universe film based on the murders that happened in the 100 Acre Woods, because Pooh and his pals did actually kill those people still. This might be a little confusing, but it doesn't change the main plot much at all, which is a group of animal-human hybrids going on a killing spree. Just changes the why for it. And maybe, as we'll eventually find out, the how for it as well. For now though, we have another scene full of brutal violence, as a group of police investigating the woods discovers Pooh's hideout. Unfortunately, they themselves are soon discovered by Tigger, who makes short work of them, ensuring they tell no one else about their whereabouts. And this seems like as good a spot as any for a review of events so far. For the three women at the start of the film, there wasn't much they could have done once attacked, so the real way to survive is to just not go out and spend the night in woods, where a dozen murders happened within the last year. You know, use some common sense. But if going to such a place like that for any reason, at least bring some sort of way to defend yourself, both lethal and non-lethal. Even if there aren't dangerous animal-human hybrids on the loose, there could still easily be actual humans that mean us harm, or even standard wild animals trying to defend their territory. Bring some bear mace, tasers, and/or some sort of firearm for protection. Especially since, as we see later, a shotgun is effective on Piglet, so there's no reason to suspect it couldn't stop any of the other 100 Acre Wood Gang members. As for the hunters in the woods later, they should always be watching each other's backs. This would have prevented the one member from being separated in the first place. But if separated, once you discover a teammate with a serious injury, you should immediately be on alert for who or what could have caused it. They could be using the injured comrade as a trap to distract us from an attack. Or the threat could just simply still be in the area. Either way, only have one member looking after the wounded person and the other standing guard at their back to make sure no one is attacked. If they had done this, Pooh may not have been able to get the drop on them, meaning they either could have survived or even taken the bear down if he showed himself. As for the next group of woefully ill-prepared people who entered the woods, those police officers should have had their weapons at the ready while entering a suspicious location that has body parts scattered around and should have had someone at the entrance staying watch. This could have had them at least attempt to fight back, not that they stood much of a chance against the Tiger Man, or could have had the lookout escape and go for backup possibly. If successful, that could mean a swarm of police and SWAT team members to fight against Pooh and friends. And seeing how a single untrained hunter could take out one, I think enough members and firepower could take down the rest with little issue. But that's not what happened, and now the forest dwellers begin their invasion. Meanwhile, Christopher goes to the hospital to visit a friend there. It's the hunter from before who got shot in the face. Turns out they survived just barely and were found on the edge of town. Guess Pooh Bear and his group should learn double tap. Well, more than they already do, I guess. His survival does very little for us though, except to inform Chris that Pooh is still around and very much a threat. But that much should have been obvious already. More importantly, while Christopher is there, he happens to notice the janitor, and he looks exactly like the kidnapper from his restored memory. Because of this, he waits for the man to get off of work and follows him home. Yeah, that's not creepy at all. Afterwards, he breaks and enters into the guy's home, armed with a tire iron, and confronts him about his brother's disappearance. Alright, this just went from creepy to highly illegal. I understand wanting to know more about your brother's kidnapping, but he's not even sure if he has the right guy or not, basing everything off a just reobtained memory from when he was like 5 years old. If he made a mistake, he could easily be seeing jail time for this, if not some hefty fines. Not to mention harassing an innocent man. But of course no, his memory was spot on accurate and he's got the right guy who immediately confesses and explains what happened all those years ago. Apparently he had some major debt owed to some violent people and a kind doctor offered to pay them all off for him. All the janitor had to do in return was kidnap a few kids for him to use in his gene splicing experiments. And of course the scumbag did it without a second thought. And just what kind of genes were being spliced? Yep, animal DNA, including that of a tiger, an owl, a pig, and you guessed it, a bear. This converted them into half-human, half-animal hybrids, and it just so happened that Christopher's brother was the one turned into Pooh Bear from this process. Eventually, though, the animal children got too dangerous, so the doctor implanted some lead in their skulls and buried them all in the 100 Acre Woods. The janitor tried to stop him, but was knocked out in the process. When he came to, all the graves were empty. So this is quite the change in backstory for our woodland friends. But this might just mean we can be able to appeal to a human side within them. especially Pooh if he is in fact related by blood. And now instead of helping anymore after this, the janitor, satisfied with getting his dark secret off his chest, ends his life. Not sure why he would wait to do this now, if at all, but that's one less person who knows the truth and could have been helping out with what's going on. But at least Chris now knows what happened to his brother and more of exactly what all the creatures he'll be going against are. His friends do not know any of this though. And Pooh Bear, still having memories of when he was a strictly human child, targets all of his and Christopher's childhood friends first for their assault on the town. Starting with a young man named Finn, who comes out of his shower to discover owl pellets on his floor, only to be attacked by Owl moments later via stomach acid and eye gouging. Gross. Next on the chopping block is Christopher's love interest Lexi, who is babysitting a kid at the time when the sound of someone breaking in is heard downstairs. The kid uses an RC car with a camera built in to get a good look and confirms that it's Pooh coming to get them. With this early warning in place, they're able to escape the bear before he even realizes what's happening. Nice job, little man. What's even better is that the kid's grandfather got worried when no one answered the phone, so he already had police dispatched to the house. But of course the cops don't believe the pair when they say a half-man, half-bear is after them, even despite them having video evidence of it. So they ignore the warning and send a single unarmed officer inside. Ironic, since they literally become unarmed soon after when they run into Pooh, who gives them a hand with early retirement. And I guess the bear just gave up after this. Maybe he didn't want to take on too many police officers at once, or could be he has his sights on something more personal or grand. But either way, Lexi is safe for now. She takes this time to call Christopher and warn him of Pooh being in the area, so he rushes home to check on his family. Tragically, he gets there too late and finds his mom and dad dead. Worse still, his little sister is missing. As if it wasn't personal enough already for him to learn that his brother was turned into the half-bear serial killer rampaging around, he's now lost the rest of his family. And Christopher isn't taking that lightly, as he now plans to take the fight to Pooh. Will he have what it takes though? Across town, Pooh Bear and Tigger now set their sights on a rave taking place near the outskirts of the 100-acre woods. Their target is another old childhood friend, Ava, but the dozens upon dozens of wasted young adult dancers are a nice bonus for them. So they go about it, slaughtering everyone in horrible and needlessly cruel ways. Christopher arrives armed with nothing but the janitor's handgun, but hey, it's better than nothing. He follows the carnage and trail of death until eventually encountering Tigger. And the wonderful thing about Tigger is he's not bulletproof, so Chris is able to injure him with a point-blank gut shot. Unfortunately, it's not enough to stop the beast from finishing off Ava, and he escapes by blinding Chris with her blood. Still though, it does at least put a hamper on his further rampaging for the night, so that's one less beat to have to deal with. Christopher runs outside, where he just so happens to run into Pooh Bear now for the final fight. Problem is, he's out of ammo, so he just picks up a metal pipe to use. But Pooh has found a chainsaw in response, as if he needed a weapon for this showdown at all. The pipe does little to stop the bear and is eventually knocked away, with Christopher on the back foot running for his life. Before he can get gotten by Pooh, however, he just so happened to run to the spot where the animal children's graves were, and this sparks a moment of remembrance in the man-beast. Seeing this, Christopher tries to reach out to Pooh's human half, calling him Billy and apologizing for all the horrible things he's had to endure, but still asking for their sister back at least. This doesn't work at all, and Pooh just starts choking him out. Thankfully, Lexi shows up to save the day, tackling the bear man off of him. Of course, she's quickly outmatched and is just about to get a face full of chainsaw, when Christopher now saves the day by asking Pooh a question to the forehead, splitting his skull in half. That seemed ridiculously easy for how powerful the bear has been, but thankfully it's finally over. Oh, and guess what? Turns out his sister was still in the house all along, just hiding from the bear and too afraid to come out while Christopher was there. So all's well that ends well, right? Well, not quite, as of course Owl and Tigger are still alive, with the latter just being injured. And what's worse, we see the corpses of both Pooh and Piglet as the little pig's head is slowly regenerating. Guess there's going to be another one of these films eventually. But for this one, let's look back at anything they could have done differently. There wasn't much all the friends or family could have done. They had no clue they would be targeted next. But thinking about it now, how did the animals even know where to find them all so easily? Do all the kids that have grown up live in the exact same home, in the same town still? None of them moved? And what about Lexi, who was babysitting at someone else's residence? How the heck did they know to look for her there? Alright, that's starting to be more of a plot issue than a tactic for survival, so here's one to look at. If all these friends and family members believe Christopher when he said killer animal men existed in the woods, why are any of them still living in Ashdown? You'd think someone would have moved away from the potential threat living nearby, especially Christopher himself, if no one else. Why would anyone live where they are easily accessible to vicious killers who may hold a personal grudge against them? They wouldn't, which could have saved several lives in this instance. At the very least, at the end of everything that happened, with almost everyone we know being attacked or killed, I think it's finally time to leave town. And time to start a forest fire in the 100-acre woods on our way out, just to be safe. Next, we have the cops that visited the residence where Lexi was at. Why in the world, if there was a breaking and entering, would you only send one unarmed cop inside? Even if it was an unarmed perpetrator, you'd think the police would want backup and/or some sort of defensive tool on them. Not sure it would have helped a ton against Pooh Bear, but it may have, and definitely would have done something against a standard intruder. So it's still a misplay by the law enforcement here. The Ravers are another group of people I don't think could have done much in this situation. Maybe they could have had strength in numbers and ganged up on Pooh and his pals, especially if they looked around for a weapon to use, as there seemed to be plenty of makeshift ones. But that's all easier said than done, and would likely still end up with several casualties. What's more realistic for them to have done is know where the exits are and make a beeline for them. It doesn't seem like anyone actually managed to escape, which is inconceivable with how large the building was, the amount of dancers there, and the fact that only 2 beastmen were attacking. It shouldn't have been possible for them to catch and kill literally everyone there. Could chalk this one up to everyone being too high and wasted, combined with being in an unfamiliar area to know where the exits are. But that's why you should always know your way out for safety. It's practical for any type of situation or emergency that could call for it, from a fire hazard to a killer bear showing up. Lastly, for the final battle victory, Christopher should have kept swinging that axe, chopping Pooh up into little bits. He knows the bear has survived being killed and buried once before, and listened to the doctor's research tapes that the janitor had, explaining the hybrid's advanced regeneration capabilities. There is no reason at all to not go ham on that body and make sure it can't come back. Slice and dice his body into cubes, burn those cubes to ash in the boiler room just inside, and throw those ashes into acid. Anything other than leaving the body there and walking away. He should also still be wary of Tigger coming back after him, since he was clearly still alive last Chris saw him. Owl, on the other hand, none of the survivors ever actually saw and lived to tell about it, so it makes sense he wouldn't be concerned with him coming back, since he doesn't even know he's after them. So now the next steps for Christopher should be to find a stable living area, preferably as far from the woods as possible, and to arm himself with as many weapons and as much training knowledge as he can to make sure he's ready for when these beasts come again. And they will almost certainly, for the in-universe reason of the animal hybrids holding a grudge, and the out-of-universe reason that these movies keep making money, so they will keep getting made. And with that said, thanks for watching as always, my friends. Take care and binge another one.